I packed every single re-released epic and spent the last week and a half reviewing each and every one of them to put them into a tier list to give us an idea of how good the free epics Konami gave us really are. Starting off with Luis Garcia. This guy is pretty much a no-nonsense winger, but he was surprisingly effective. If I looked at his card beforehand and had a look at his stats, I wouldn't have been too interested in him. But after using him, I'm very pleasantly surprised. Probably not someone that's going to go on my main team on the account that I have, you know, the big-time Messi's and a blitz curl of Salah, but while I was using him, I did enjoy him. In terms of his card, he's got great dribbling stats, good pace, particularly in the acceleration, and then quite good balance. His finishing is quite low, and his kicking power on my build, which I'll show in a moment, is 84. But I have to say, he did kind of play above his stats in terms of his shooting. He scored a few goals that definitely surprised me. Now, a little bit of that might be the fact that goalkeepers got nerfed slightly in eFootball 25, so you know, in a couple of weeks, maybe they'll patch that and make goalkeepers more effective again. So this guy won't be as much of a clinical winger. But if we look at his build here, you can see at the moment this did work quite well. In terms of skills, because he's kind of more a winger that you use to kind of create chaos on the right, I would put flip-flap on him with the double touch and soul control, and probably pinpoint crossing as well, just to help with that. I probably wouldn't go any further than that and put further skills. Except for maybe super sub in case you want a little bit of pace injected on the wings late into a game. And if we go into the tier list, I think this Luis Garcia is a very comfortable B tier player. Next player we're going to look at is Ruud van Nistelrooy, and if you've been watching my stream since the update, this guy is one of the best players I've used in the update. I think there's only one striker better than him that I've used at the moment, and that is Eto, but Eto isn't in that pack, and Eto's a goal poacher, so I am comfortable saying, even including Romario, I think Van Nistelrooy, with the current state of the game, is a lot better. And I think it's because of the physical contact changes. Before the update, the World Cup Messi was my favourite player to use. He has high physical contact, so people were thinking he will be my favourite player going into this one as well. But with the dribbling changes they've added, the physical contact kind of engagements that get triggered, I feel like dribblers like Romario aren't as effective as up front anymore, because when the box is crowded by defenders, you can't really dribble. You're going to get locked into a shield animation, and another defender is going to pick up the ball. So you need more of a gunslinger up front, like Ruud van Nistelrooy, who's just going to take the ball, take as few touches as possible, and then the last touch is going to be putting it into the top right corner, as you can see there. And then Fox in the Box playstyle is also something that you kind of have to adapt your tactic around. You do have to build your tactic, at least the front line, around the fact that you're using a Fox in the Box. They're best on their own as a centre forward, with wingers, a left wing and a right wing forward either side of them, because if you play them in a more traditional meta narrow formation with the centre forwards and the second strikers, the other attacking AI, such as a goal poacher, will try run in behind and score from that, but then the Fox in the Box looks at that and doesn't want to make the run anymore. Whereas if you play a Fox in the Box on their own, they're the kind of taking responsibility for the runs, and they'll always kind of run off the shoulder of the defender. So as soon as you see a Van Nistelrooy or any Fox in the Box make that AI run, have your finger ready on triangle to play a through ball, because like here in this clip, as soon as the ball, or as soon as the run is made, you can find them, and then he's comfortable on the ball, and he's very comfortable outside the box shooting. These clips all here are without any skills added onto them. I have added skills on now, as you're seeing. I would recommend these skills. I was going to put true passing on them. I had a bit of debate. We played a couple of games before putting skills on, and we realised we don't need true passing, just because with the way Fox in the Box AI works, if you play the ball into them in the middle, they'll be in plenty of space, and the centre backs and other defenders will kind of converge onto Van Nistelrooy, and it'll open up the wings into plenty of space. And with the new passing changes they've made, you don't need true passing, because the passes are so easy to play into your left wing and right wing. So that's why I didn't go for the true passing. Here's the build I went for. I do think the 95 finishing is necessary. I do think it's like a level of where you just get consistency in the finishing, and then the kicking power to complement that too. And then the dexterity is at 11 just to get 99 on offensive awareness. And then when we look at the tier list, I'm very comfortable putting this Ruud van Nistelrooy into S tier. So the next player we're going to look at is Edgar Davids. And a lot of people were surprised at my thoughts on this guy before using him with the training guide. And I do understand why people were surprised. I still think most of what I said rings true, although I have to say, when I started using this card, I really didn't like him, but the more I've used him, the more I've grown into him. So Edgar Davids is a destroyer. Traditionally, I don't like using destroyers And that's mainly just because I always play one DMF and a quick counter or a possession playstyle, so I want to push high up the pitch. And the anchorman is really important because when your opponent gets the ball, can play a pass into his striker's feet, the anchorman is going to be there most of the time to intercept that pass, where the destroyer will drift left and right a little bit. So that still rings true. I wouldn't play him on his own in a DMF if you're going to push high up like that. But in other tactics, which is what I've been using with the new update just to experiment, I do think Edgar Davids has improved. And particularly, I think his passing is something that surprised me. So I tried a few builds, one with 88 low pass and one with lower. I can say you should use the 88 low pass build in my opinion. Although it's not going to be his lofted pass that you're going to notice, it's always going to be his low pass. That clip that I just played a moment there, it was just kind of to show there is sometimes he's a bit weak in the interception. That one too, he comes for a loose ball, steps up and doesn't get on the end of it, and then takes the ball here, bad touch, and loses the ball. So I still don't think this guy is like a perfect DMF renting, and I don't think he is the best option out of Legends. I do think there would be non-legend options that are better. But in terms of a destroyer, I can't have too many issues, but within that, I don't like destroyers too much. But he did feel kind of nimble. My build also has 88 balance. I'll be showing it in a moment. I didn't put any skills on him. I probably won't put skills on him just yet because I don't think I will be using them long term. Got better options. But if you want to know what skills to put on him, I do have a dedicated training guide video for that. Here's his build. Here you can see 85 on the passing, get that 88 boost. We had a build with lower defending. I was using that for most of the time. I think only one game in my review I had the 85. I do think I'm going to stick with the 85 though, because we can still maintain the passing to a high level. Dribbling wasn't, I don't think it was great, but it wasn't like a major issue. And then the kick and power as that goal you see in the last clip there, we keep that high so we can get opportunities like that. So for the tier list, I think for my own playstyle I'd have him in B tier, but if we're judging him on his own merits, I think he has to go into A tier. I think that's just because mainly off the top of my head, I don't think you're going to get many destroyers with that level of passing, and also he has that long shot in his locker, so that's a good benefit too. So for me, he'd be a B tier, but overall, in terms of ranking him against other destroyers, definitely an A tier, arguably an S tier, but his dribbling isn't at the level I would need it at. The next player we're going to look at is Baresi. I have 344 games played with this guy, so I packed him when he originally came out. I haven't played that much since the new update. It was at about 280 games before the update, so I've definitely played a lot with him. And I didn't really like him before the update. Now, the reason I had 280 games played with him is because if you watch my streams, you know there's few things I like more in this game than a ball playing centre-back, which is definitely the type of centre-back this Baresi is. So I always wanted to make him work, but he never really did. But since the update, he's very strong. Honestly, I'm very happy with him. I'm very happy I got him. I got him in 100 coins, by the way, so that was definitely money well spent. But I have a few theories as to why he's better in the new update. So about a week ago, maybe less than a week, I uploaded a video on how to defend in the new update, because they've made defending more manually based and you can't rely on matchup as much. So for a player like Baresi, he has, on my build, 99 defensive awareness. So I think the difference is that with matchup being less strong, a player with extremely high defensive awareness and defensive stats overall kind of becomes more prominent, because traditionally I've only recommended, you know, you only need to go in eFootball 24 to about 90 on your defensive stats and you're getting most of the benefits. Whereas now I think you can probably start investing a bit further into your defensive stats, and Baresi is definitely good for that. And then here's another example of why Baresi's good. He's small, he's short, he's kind of nimble, so if you're playing against a striker like a Messi or a Roberto, he is perfect for kind of standing them up in a one-on-one. So if we look at his build, here it is. You can see he's got good passing, good dribbling, good defending, and he's actually quite fast with good balance. So here is the build with the progression points. You can see he has quite good jumping stats, but he doesn't start with aerial superiority, so definitely put that on. In terms of other skills, I have more in depth in that training guide video, but I was debating on stream if I wanted to put true passing on him. I would have assumed he had true passing. It was only when I looked at his skills I realized he doesn't have it. So even without true passing, as you've seen in the clips, this guy was pinging passes around like it was nothing. So I don't think I actually need true passing on him, but I am probably gonna put it on just to be that little bit extra more confident in his passes. But overall, this guy has been amazing for me. And if we go into the tier list, he's definitely joining Van Nistlerooy in S tier. If I had to compare who's better, I'd probably go Van Nistlerooy, just because Baresi's gonna need that aerial superiority, and I think a lot of people don't need as much in a ball playing centre back as I do. It's definitely very important to my style, but traditionally people just clear the ball with their centre backs, so I will have him just below Van Nistelrooy for those reasons. But for me, he was definitely amazing. Next player we're going to look at is Dwight Yorke. I didn't actually pack this guy myself. He was the only player in the pack I didn't get. But one of my subscribers, Jack, let me on their account to try him out. So I really appreciate that. And it's happened in the past with other players as well. For instance, Momentum, Dribbling Ronaldinho, someone else, Ricardo, let me on their account for that. So I really appreciate that. If anyone wants to let me on their account to try out new players in the future, I really appreciate it. Just contact me on Discord. But on to Dwight Yorke. This guy was quite good and surprisingly good. I know I just missed that chance there, but he did score 4 goals in this one match I played with him. I had intentions of playing more matches to get clips, but he did 4 goals in one match, so I think we got enough footage from the one match. Now, I wouldn't take too much away from this one game just because my opponent, you know, we did beat him by a comfortable margin, so it could have been like a case of against this guy, Yorke was good, but against a higher rated opponent, he might struggle. I could anticipate that just because he did actually miss a few of the simple chances. But overall, he was quite decent. He was good in the link-up play. I could play a long ball up to him, and he would take it like that, or he'd come short, and I played into his feet. So very versatile. He was quick on the 1-2. Now, this guy is a goal poacher. Here's his build that I used. He's a goal poacher, but I built him as if he was a fox in the box. And what I mean by that is I gave him the 95 finishing. Usually goal poachers are faster players than fox in the box players if you look in your club, and they have better dribbling stats. The exception to that would be Romario. But I think that Dwight Yorke definitely is more of a box or fox in the box type player. But as I mentioned in Ruud van Nistelrooy, fox in the boxes, you have to build a tactic around them, whereas a goal poacher you can kind of just slot in there however you want. So in that regard, he is more versatile than Van Nistelrooy in terms of what tactics he'll fit in, but overall I think Van Nistelrooy is a stronger player. If we look at his skills, he has acrobatic finishing and first time shot. He doesn't have aerial superiority, and he has quite good jumping on my build anyway, so I definitely recommend putting aerial superiority on him. You could go for a double touch and a long range shooting too. And then if we look at the build here, Jack had a different build, so I just reconfigured it before playing, and I do think this was more effective. Unfortunately, we can't get the kick compare to 90 if we want to keep the dribbling, so you could even take more dribbling off, although I did comment on how he was fast enough. So if you take dribbling off, the dribbling stat is how fast you run with the ball, so that might be an issue if you take dribbling off. But I did take a little bit off, and then it'll get to 80 with the form boost, so it was on 79 there. So if we go to the tier list, I'm debating on putting them between C tier and B tier. I think B tier, if you are going to use him as a super sub, so put the super sub skill on him, he should be kind of good for playing that through ball into him, or maybe that aerial ball, and just you need that one shot to count. With his high finishing, it should count. Overall though, I think there are other options you can do for that, like a Haaland, so I think we'll keep him in C tier. Very surprising that he scored 4 goals in one match and I have him in C tier, but I know how this game can go. Players can have hot streaks, and he did have a hot streak in them, but I think against more versatile opponents, when you have a wider range of a sample size, I do think his flaws will come out. Next, we're going to look at the 3 Bayern Munich legends, starting with Van Buyten. This is also a player I had before this pack, so I have 80 games with him, not as much as Baresi, and I'm not the biggest fan of this guy. He's very tall, obviously, and that can be a use, but as I mentioned before, I like to play quick counter and usually press from the front, and this guy, with how kind of slow he is, it can be an issue. He gets caught out of position. Also, he is a destroyer, so he wants to step up. I do think he'd be better as a build-up. It'd be better if he would just sit back and hang on the defender, so if a long ball gets played in, he's always there for the clearance. But because he's a destroyer, he might step up, and then when your opponent plays the long ball, it's your other centre-back going for the aerial duel. This is the build I went for. His defensive stats aren't actually extremely high, and with what I said about Baresi, I could probably adjust it, take off a little bit of the physical and put it into defending, but at the end of the day, it's not going to make him extremely good in the awareness department. If we look at his skills, he is missing interception, and it's a big miss, so you definitely want to put it on him. I did put it on him. It still didn't make him amazing. I know other players like him a lot, but personally, I don't get along with him too well. When we go to the tier list, if we judge him just solely on his ability to win aerial duels, he should be S tier in that regard. But what I said about him being a destroyer, he might be slightly out of position and end up not contesting that long ball into the striker. So he probably dropped down to A tier based on that. And then also, because for me, whenever I use him in quick counter or possession, he doesn't suit. The play style, I'd probably drop him down to B tier. And if he was a build-up, I think he would be an S tier, but because of the Destroyer, he is a bit lower. Now, other players like him a lot, and Dominator does like this Van Buyten, so it's probably just a matter of personal taste, but that's my opinion. You do have to remember, he doesn't start with interception, you're going to have to put that on, so I think that has to factor into the tier list ranking. Next, we're going to look at Roberto. This guy is put down as a left midfielder, but I do think that is the worst position you should play him out of the positions he can play. So he can play left mid, centre mid, and left back. I do think he'd be best as a centre mid, and then maybe as a left back if you have a tactic that focuses on one of your fullbacks being very attacking. But this guy is a great little kind of half winger in centre mid, so you do want them kind of out wide in that space, but it's to kind of carry the ball, get into free space, and redistribute it around. He's very technically sound player, good dribbling, good passing, good skills, and does have 90 kicking power, so he has a good shot in his back locker. If we look at his skills, he's mainly just missing double touch in terms of his dribbling, and then interception to help him defensively. So I do think if you want to play him left back or left centre mid, sorry, you do need interception in both of those positions, so I'll definitely put interception on him first. But once you have that, you're good to go to put him in centre mid, and he can kind of help you redistribute the ball and recycle it when you're sieging your opponent's box. So if we go to the tier list, at the moment, I would say he's better than Luis Garcia, but below Edgar Davids. We have to pick a tier. With the skills, I recommend on him probably into A tier, but without the skills, B tier. So it's kind of a mix of that. Is he worth the investment? If you're a free-to-play player and you got him, I think he is worth the investment of putting skills on him. I think if you're someone who spends money on the game, you'd be better off just using your other centre mids like an Iniesta or Xavi or Pirlo, whoever you have. So for free-to-play players, he might be A tier, but for paid players, maybe B tier. So we'll just put him in B tier to the side there. So the last of the Bayern players is Pizarro. Now this guy's a very interesting card. He's a fox in the box with super sub, and he has really good dribbling stats in the just below 90s. Good jumping, and he has 90 finishing on my build. So usually a fox in the box I would put 95 finishing on. This one I only have 90 just so we can use that dribbling. So he's a bit unique there. I've used this guy on someone else's account and he was very good then, but this time around only 19 games played and 3 goals, so a very lackluster goals per game record. I do feel though long term he would come good, but particularly super sub, he doesn't have the pace, and super subs I find in my experience are better when they have pace. So I guess that is one element of why he might not be as good. Another element of super subs that is good is their aerial ability. Unfortunately, you know, headers aren't amazing in this game, but they have improved them in eFootball 25, so there is some merit there. I don't think my goals to game record accurately reflects how this guy was, but if based on this review and my time using him since the eFootball 25 release, he would have to be probably a D tier based on that, but I do know from prior experience he is good. So beforehand I would have thought he was an A or B tier, but based on using him I think we'll put him in C tier. And we had, you know, Dwight Yorke with 1 game played and 4 goals, and then this guy with 19 appearances off the bench, mostly probably 16 off the bench and only 3 goals. So beforehand I would have thought it would have been the other way around. So I guess between these guys it's a toss up, and I wouldn't trust the Yorke one off the 1 game too much. I wouldn't look too much into the Pizarro because he's only off the bench. And another player that I use exclusively off the bench is Michael Owen. And you can see here, while Michael Owen's goals to game record is a bit better, it's not as amazing as you would expect from a player of his ability, and it's just because I'm using him off the bench. And a lot of the times when I'm bringing a player off the bench, I'm not actually looking for them to score, it's just to get fresh legs up front because I'm usually holding on to a lead. Next we're going to look at David Seaman, so the only goalkeeper in the pack. A lot of people have been coming into my streams asking me my thoughts on this guy. Is he bad? And no, this guy is a very good goalkeeper. It's just that, as I mentioned earlier, goalkeepers are less effective overall in this game. So if you've been using David Seaman and thinking he's letting in too many goals, it's not really him that's the problem, it's the overall game. But this guy is quite good. Not the best keeper in the game, but what he did right there, the catching, I do think he is the best at catching. He probably has one of the highest stats. I've used Petit, and Petit is overall the best keeper I've used, but in terms of his handling, David Seaman definitely has him beat in that regard. But yeah, there's not too much to say about this guy other than he is quite good. I wouldn't be worrying about his mistakes he's making for you. There will be times where you use manual keeping and he lets a goal in. But again, it's not really too much to do with him. It's more to do with the game. Although maybe there are some instances where someone like Petr would actually make the save. So when I made the training guide video, I used a different build, and in there I mentioned how I think this will be a better one. So I can confirm this is a better build. There's not too much into it. Again, it's goalkeepers, but we do have every stat on 90. The other build I had more catching and awareness, but I do feel 95 is the threshold, so I don't think there's going to be a difference between 95 catching and 97, for instance. So when we go to the tier list, there's an argument this guy could be S tier, definitely based on his catching alone, but I do think he is just a slight bit behind your Petr and your Peter Schmeichel, so I'll put him into A tier. I'd rather him though to Davids probably, so I'll put Davids just behind him, but definitely a very good keeper. Don't be worried about the saves not being made. It's the game, not the keeper. So moving on to Emmanuel Petit. Now this is a guy who's very close to being a decent player, but I do think there is a problem with the card, and it's the fact that he's a box-to-box. If we go on to the positives though, like you can see here, he did do a nice outside curler pass, and I noticed that a few times. It wasn't just a one-off instance, so there is a little bit of finesse to him, but in terms of making him a box-to-box, I feel like his dribbling and his finishing aren't good enough. So when I look at a box-to-box, ideally I want minimum of 70 finishing. My build only has 64. Obviously you could give him 70, but you're just taking off too many stats elsewhere. Funny enough though, as bad as his dribbling was, he scored, I didn't score this, but the best dribbling sequence with the finesse dribbling I got is probably with Petit, so I don't know how to explain that. Obviously I've been struggling with the new finesse dribbling system. I thought the old system in eFootball 24 was a lot better. I feel like it's a bit of a gimmick. We'll have a review of the overall game up soon, but back to the Petit. If we look at his card, this is the build I went for, and these are the skills he has. So he has good skills. He is missing true passing though, and I think every centre midfielder needs one touch pass, true pass and interception. So he has 2 out of 3. I talk about that in my how to train midfielders video, so if you want to know more about that, check out that video. He also could do with a track back and maybe a long range shooting. You did see a clip there where he did a long shot, but it was down the middle of the goal, which is always a problem without that skill. Now you can reconfigure the build to get the finishing that I talked about. It's not too bad, I guess. You do take off a good bit of speed, and one thing that I think is very important for midfielders when intercepting is their speed. I have a Mateus with 90 speed, 90 acceleration, and he's like Kante on steroids. This guy's really good, so taking off the speed will make him a little bit worse at intercepting, but I guess it does get the finishing that you might be looking for. So if we go to the tier list, I think if he was a destroyer, he'd rank better, but you wouldn't have to put them points into the shooting, and you could keep it on the speed to make him better intercepting. So as a box-to-box, not great at dribbling. I know he had that one clip, but that was with finesse dribbling. I think most players dribble the same with finesse. I'm going to put him in C tier, just below Pizarro and Yorke. I think I'd rather have them two than Petit. Next, we're going to look at Dixon. I really like this guy. He was really good for me. I had kind of an idea he would be good though before I used him. Very strong fullback. Had some weird pass animations as you're seeing there. Like that's new to the game obviously, but I didn't even really see any other player do that. And there was another instance of it, I think here as well. Just kind of a weird like stabby outside curler. Now that one wasn't accurate, but it does go to show there is some merit, and then he recovers and plays a nice pass in there, and almost scored from the first time shot off the visionary pass with Messi. But yeah, Dixon was very good when I was manually using him to defend, and also when I was relying on the AI. He would step up, great passing, can switch the ball very well, and it's kind of expected when you look at his skills, or stats rather. He has 88 lofted pass, so that switch ball would be expected. Here is the stats I used and the build. So if we go into the progression points, you can see we did put a lot into passing because I wanted him to be a player that if I had the ball at right back, I could switch it to the left wing very comfortably, and with the new passing in the game, that is more viable. We did get a lot of the defending up to 85. Unfortunately, we didn't get the awareness. Now you could do a build where you take off a little bit of the speed and put it back in there like that, and then that will get you the 85 awareness, so he will be stronger defensively. I don't think it's necessary. You might be worried about taking off the speed and kicking power. I wouldn't be worried about that either though. You can see in his positions he can start off only playing right back fully, and then centre back with nothing, and right mid and half. So you might be asking, okay, can I play this guy right mid in a 3-5-2? I don't think he'd be terrible, but I do think with your position trainers, if you put them on this guy, you should definitely put him on centre back. I think if he played in a wide centre back role in a 3 at the back, he'd be a lot better than right mid. Kind of like Costa Curta. He wouldn't be as strong defensively, but he would be more comfortable with the ball at his feet, and the passing would probably be at a similar level. Although one thing, Costa Curta has a better weak foot. This guy only has the medium, so I wouldn't be dribbling on the inside and playing the switch ball with his left foot. But if you were to play him in that position, you would need to put acrobatic clearance and aerial superiority, and it would help if you had low lofted pass on him too. So if we go to the tier list, I want to put him in S tier. At fullback, I thought he was great. If you want to play him as centre back though, he'd probably be an A tier, just because he needs the skills, aerial and acrobatic for that position, and he isn't the tallest, and also he doesn't have the weak foot. So when he's cutting on into his left, it won't be as good as Costa Curta. But at right back, honestly, I think he's S tier. You wouldn't need acrobatic clearance at right back. Aerial superiority would be useful, but you wouldn't need it as much. I definitely think right back, for my type of player, he is a defensive fullback as well, keep in mind, so he will stay back and then you can ping the passes very well. So I think he is an S tier type of player. The next player we're going to look at is Dennis Irwin. Now, if you look at his skills, it might be a bit surprising how much I like this guy, but if you look at his stats, it does make sense. Now, he is Irish, so there might be some Irish bias involved, but I hope the clips, as you're seeing here, will kind of explain why I rate this guy so highly. But this guy at left back was just a stalwart of my team. He's kind of like Philip Lamb, but on the left-hand side, so he's also an offensive fullback, so he will go forward. But trust me, when he goes forward, he can definitely do a job up there, and then when he tracks back and defends, he can get back in position. And even though he's not got good physical contact, I noticed so many times him barging the opposition off the ball and taking it and then driving forward, either with a dribble or a pass. So definitely a card I'm very happy to get. When he released originally, I did want them, but I didn't like the pack that he came in, so I didn't think it was value for money. So I'm definitely very happy I ended up getting him for free in the long term. He also has good penalties. Not that it matters really. Your strikers like a Messi or something will have better penalties, so you wouldn't take them penalties with him too much, but you might in a shootout be able to rely on him. So definitely a very good player, and I'm definitely very happy I got my hands on him. So here are his stats and then the build. Very well rounded. You can see the kicking power is very high. I didn't really actually use that. I never really got a long shot with him, but he doesn't actually have long range shooting, so you could put that on. I did put man marking. I don't know if that worked or not. I can't remember when I put it on and if it improved him, but also you could do with a one-touch pass and a true pass, and then maybe like a track back or a double touch, depending on your taste. So when we go to the tier list, I am struggling on where to place him. I'm thinking S tier, but like at the end of the day, he doesn't have as many skills and he doesn't have his standout stats, so maybe A tier. And if you do give him the skills, it's a big investment, and he's still only going to become kind of par with the other players. Like, I'm mainly kind of comparing him to Costa Curta in my head. If I compare him to another player I've used, Roberto Carlos, I do feel like this guy is better, so he's above Roberto Carlos anyway. We'll put him in A tier because of the lack of skills, but if Konami release this guy in the future and they give him a lot of skills, this guy would be very good to get. It probably won't happen though, because he is kind of not a flashy player, so if they do re-release him, he probably won't get more skills, but I'm hoping, because I think I would spend money on this guy. Next we're going to look at Mendieta. This guy kind of reminds me of Luis Garcia when you look at his card. Nothing too complex about him, although while Luis Garcia is a winger, this guy is more of a centre midfielder slash attacking midfielder. But I can't say after using him, he didn't really impress me. Luis Garcia definitely impressed me more. I wouldn't say Mendieta was bad, but he just didn't. He never really like stood out to me like, oh, this is why he's an epic. This guy just felt like a kind of normal enough player. If you were new to the game, I'd say he'd be a decent midfielder in your team, but you wouldn't look to him to win you a game. He would just be kind of there along for the ride. So maybe that sounds a bit harsh, but that's what I did notice. Like, I've had a couple of times where I'd cut in and shoot with him, and it would just drag wide, and I was just disappointed with his shots. I played how many games? I played 11 games, didn't get a single goal with him, 3 assists. So yeah, not the greatest return. It is a shame he can't play right wing. He can play right back though. I don't think you'd ever play him there just because his defensive stats are so poor, unless you were playing one of them 5 at the back formations where you have attacking instruction on your fullbacks. So when we go to the tier list, the guy wasn't useless, but definitely not impressed at all, so we'll go bottom of C tier. So last 2 players are Evair and Guti. We'll start off with Evair because, similar to Mendieta, I don't have too much thoughts on this guy. He's a fox in the box. He's actually got quite decent pace, 85 speed and 89 acceleration, but I didn't notice it in game. There was a few times I'd play a ball into him and he'd be through on goal and he'd get caught by the centre backs. So definitely not a great player. You can see here he even fails to do a rainbow flick, so yeah, he's a bit useless on the pitch. Nice scissors feint though, to be fair, to get around Araujo and win the advantage, but ultimately can't get past the second defender. But yeah, not impressed with this guy at all. he only has high weak foot. I think if he had very high weak foot, it would have been a lot better. That one was with his weak foot there, his left foot. But I think when a guy like this, and then this is an example of him through on goal, not able to finish like a simple chance, like that's the type of shot you need your fox to the box to finish. And to be honest, I only gave him 90 finishing on this build, so maybe that's why he didn't finish that one. Fox to box I usually give 95, but if you look at his stats, he's looking poor elsewhere. So if I were to give him 95 finishing, I think you're taking off too much from him elsewhere. If you do want to salvage the card though, maybe just give him acrobatic finishing and also super sub. Like you might get something out of him there, but I really wouldn't even bother. I think your free Mbappe cards you get would just be a lot better of a player than Evair. So for the tier list, I think I'm comfortable in putting Evair into D tier. So the last player is Guti, and for me this guy is mostly interesting because he starts with super sub. Traditionally, players that have super sub by the start are centre forwards or wingers, so to have an attacking midfielder, that is interesting. Now, I have 100 games played with this guy, but most of them came months ago because I actually got this guy in a different pack a while ago. So when I was using him before in eFootball 24, I didn't really like him too much, but the few games I used him in eFootball 25, I thought he was actually very effective. And I think it makes sense when you look at the changes to passing and also the changes to physical. So he has 71 physical contact on this build. But this is an updated build, so the build I had in training guide had 90 low pass, and if you look at the reason why I had that is because if we had one more point into passing, we would have got 85 for the +3, but I lowered it and put the points into physical, and the reason for that is in my how to train midfielders guide, I did talk about how 88 low pass is as high as you really need low pass to go, because it gives true passing skill, it gives a +20% boost to the low pass stat. So if you want to know more further about that, you can check out that video. But yeah, the physical contact changes make Guti more viable, and same with the passing changes. There's just a lot more space to pass into. So when a player like Guti has good passing, it becomes a lot better for him as a player. Now the super sub is also useful because he has very high weak foot. If you were to play a formation like this where you have two attacking midfielders and you want to bring on Guti off the bench, he can slot in either side, left or right. So definitely a very happy that I'm happy they re-released this card, because I don't think I would have given it another look if they didn't. I think I would have just kept my previous opinion on how he was in eFootball 24 and think that he isn't the greatest player. But in terms of skills, acrobatic finishing and flip-flap look like ideal to me. So if we go to the tier list, I think if he didn't have the very high weak foot or the super sub, I think he would be like a B tier. But because he has them, I think he's A tier, and I'd probably have him still below the other players there though. He's just missing that little bit of edge with his finishing. Stats are there, but I just found that in practice they weren't amazing. So overall, I think it was a good pack. It's a bit of a shame though, you had to have been playing. You pretty much, this is a free pack they give out, so it should be rewarding free-to-play players, but players who spend on the game like myself were the ones who were in the position to get the most out of the pack, because of the way the contract renewals converted into spins on it. So a bit disappointing there from Konami, but I do think the players were pretty good, so I'm definitely happy with these guys. So thanks for watching. It was a long video. It definitely took me a while to do. Appreciate Jack for letting me get my hands on Yorke, as he was the only player I didn't use. So I appreciate it, and let me know your guys' thoughts on the tier list. I'll have a link in the description for you guys to complete it yourself, and we'll see how my opinion kind of compares to everyone else's.